talk that we're having tonight. So, Christos Voskras.
Воистину воскрес.
Oh my goodness,
Воистину воскрес.
So,
You guys hear me?
so
I might be quiet.
Katrina definitely has a delay there, like in the internet, So that's why we'll be giving
It's not
her
very good.
space. So one of the part of the living a little bit further away from Ottawa is, of course, Ottawa has this good internet and everything else. Further away, there could be some technical difficulties. So tonight, it's our third conversation tonight on the same topic. First time we had was a conversation with people who just recently came to Canada, right? Or who came to Canada at some point of time. So we had Polina's mom, we had Olena Statkevich, and we had somebody else who was and Irina. So last Thursday we had a conversation with people who were born in Canada, who are in their more respectful generation, they're in their 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s even, we had a conversation with the people there, so what's their perception of the church, what would they like to see, what would they like to have, and stuff like that, so tonight I'm doing something a little bit different, I'm engaged in people who I saw growing up in the church, and I've seen and been a witness was is that your dad? Yeah, okay. I know for many years, they're younger people. They are the people of our future. And again, we will have the same conversation happening tonight. And I will ask first for them to introduce themselves, and then we'll continue. So we'll start with Katrina. Katrina, we're starting with you. Can you say
Katrina.
a couple of words about yourself?
As mentioned.
Sorry. Can you say a couple of words about
I am 23. I'm currently living in the country. I'm working part-time currently as an outdoor adventure guide, and I've been going to church till I can't even remember. I've always grown up going to church. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Okay. So by the way, I'd like to congratulate Katrina on purchasing this wonderful property outside of Ottawa. It's too bad that she's so far away, but I'm very happy for her, and we're talking about organizing something on September 11th this year to come and, if God's willing, of course, to go and see at her place of work, because she works at Adventure Park, right? Well, you'll talk about it a little bit later, So there's, I think, zip lining there. There's a canyon there. There's waterfalls there. So hopefully it will be a nice day trip there.
Yeah.
So, okay. So the next person I'd like to invite, of course, is to say a couple of words is Polina.
Hi.
Polina.
Yes. I'm Polina. I'm 21 and I live in Ottawa. I'm working in a law firm as a law clerk, and I'm studying psychology in university. I came to Canada 5 years ago.
And been a constant pleasure in our church too. So okay, so Ruslan.
Yes, so my name's Ruslan. I've been going to the church since I guess I was born. I just finished up my master's at Carleton, and I'm working on a startup business with my brother.
Excellent. Well, Ruslan also has 3 brothers, right? And one of Ruslan's brothers is my godson, which I'm very proud of because he's playing good hockey, right?
Yeah.
So that's one thing. Okay. Well, when we start, again, I don't want to sound official. I would like the conversation to be more or less natural, And people, please, I'm asking you, not to use not to use official language, but I'm asking you to interject, to express your opinions, not to be worried about the judgment, So because it's basically an opportunity for us to talk about various things. Okay, so again, it's kind of interesting the question that I was supposed to ask, and I ask everybody the same thing, what brought you to church, has already been answered in their first couple minutes, right? Ruslan, I remember him since I came here to Ottawa 19 years ago. Same was Katrina, and now for 5 years I know Polina. Okay. So, interestingly enough, you would say that your parents brought you to church, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
Would it be fair?
I was there.
Yeah.
Sorry?
I showed up and I was there since birth. I was this small.
You were this small, okay. So, so you and your brother were not baptized by me, but the other two siblings were, So that's very interesting and cool. So now, as we move on in this conversation, I just wanted to say that the world is interesting right now that we live in. It's changing, right? And there's lots of changes that are happening that kind of not push youth towards the church, right? There's lots of obstacles for that matter, and so on. So tell me, how do you say it? Aside from the fact that you were brought to church by parents, what do you think of the church?
Good question. I'll let the ladies answer first.
So, anyone would volunteer to ask to have their question? Do that have it answered?
Sorry. Whiskey.
Well, I personally, first of all, I wouldn't say that my parents brought me to the church. They did before when I was a kid. Then I just stopped going there. At the age of 16, I became agnostic, and then I kind of started to come to the church again pretty fairly recently, a couple of months ago. And so as for me, the church is kind of first of all, is a place where I could meet people from my culture, people who speak the same language as I do, and also it's the place where I could get some comfort and calmness. And I don't even know how to explain this, but when every time when I go to the church, I feel it feels good. I have this feeling of, I don't know how to explain it, but as for me, the church is. It's this, people from my culture and the feeling of comfort, calmness.
It's
feel
really
the
hard
same
to
way.
come to church right now.
Oops, sorry. I actually really resonate with that, Polina,
That's
because
all right.
that kind of was the same idea for me. So at the beginning for me, it was my mom used to always bring me and my sister to church. And after a while, my dad's like, well, let the girls decide if they actually want to go to church. Maybe they don't even want to. And so my mom's like, well, okay, girls, you can choose if you want to go. And we found ourselves still wanting to go because that was how we could connect with our Ukrainian roots and our culture.
Mm-hmm.
And, I never got it outside of school. Yes, I used to do Ukrainian school, but when we got pulled out of that, church was that home in the sense of Ukraine. And I think that's kind of how you feel as well. It's a touch of your home,
Mm-hmm.
but in Canada. And it's the familiar your faces. It's the babas who always look at you and start saying things and yelling at you for doing something wrong when you're a kid. And, and just the choir. I remember every single time I go, the choir always is just so beautiful. And I'm like, no other church has this passion and just the music is stunning. Everything about church and the culture that it brought to my life at least was beautiful, and I never wanted to lose that. As I got older, I cherish it and I still do, and it's been tough these past few years not being able to go as much and reconnect with my Ukrainian culture, that I'm at the point where I'm like, oh my god, am I losing it, but it's things where I get to reconnect with you lovely people, and it reminds me of why I love church and the people so much. So that's my little add-in for it.
I don't know if I ever left or stopped. Maybe a little bit when I went to university, and the Ukrainian church was like 45 minutes away by car. And I went to a Catholic school, which was very different. But I don't think I ever left. I enjoyed going to our church specifically. As you know, my father's Roman Catholic, so I'd been to a few Catholic masses before, which are slightly different, especially when they're the more modern Catholic churches with the iconography, which I think is very important, especially for inclusivity in the church, as the icons are there to tell the story of Christ. And I've been to, I don't think I've ever been to a Protestant mass, but I have been to Protestant churches, and each time I've been to a various church that isn't ours, it resonates with me why everybody feels at home at the Orthodox Church. It's very inviting, it's very calm and peaceful, and just like St. Cyril and Methodists, you do feel closer to God. As the ancient Ukrainian tradition was, they said, the story of going and checking out to the other religions of the world. The pagans went and they want to see which religion shall we baptize the Slavs, and they felt God in the Greek Orthodox Church. So I very much resonate with that.
Wow. It's well, you make me guys speechless, and very special because of the point of knowing you guys. I so I how would you say it? I know all of you for a while, and I just remember when Katrina and Michaela would come to church, and they were little yet, so they would hang in my arms, and I would lift them up. That's how it was a while ago, anyways, and there's, of course, there's that element of struggle, right? Because when you look at the length of our masses, right, like of our services, not mass liturgies, right? The length of our liturgies, it's not a short service, right? So, and I had struggled with that for a long time, like how to make it relevant and stuff like that. So, and about a couple of months ago, we had online conversation. Was one of the his official position of Christ the Savior Orthodox Church was he's a catechist, right? Oh, somebody's had left. Oh, it's always internet, guys. Don't worry about it. Putting a little back. It was interesting that he's a catechist at Christ the Savior Orthodox Church, and he had said something very interesting that kind of now make even more sense to me. Like, I don't know if you ever, when you are in Ukraine, or when you went to Ukraine, right, on that missionary trip, it was interesting that you saw when people come out, like walk in, putting this back, and 1 second. So you would see in Ukraine, right, people come into the church. Again, the internet connection is not the best because every evening everybody's on internet right now. So, but again, going back to this point, you would go into Ukraine and you would see it, that people come into the church, they pick up a bunch of candles, right? They would come in, They would put the candle, say a sign, make a sign of a cross, they'll pray, and then sometimes leave and stuff like that, So he told me the same thing. He said, reminded me about the same thing. He says, you don't need to, how do you say, without full understanding, you don't need to stay in the church all the time, right? Come in, you say a prayer, right? I come in at the moment when you come in, you say a prayer, and you can be at the church till the end of the liturgy if you're compelled to. Sometimes, especially when you coming back to the church, especially when you, trying to, I don't know, come back to that life of the church, it's very difficult to kind of withstand endure entire thing, So that's why people come and leave in our church, and it's not a negative thing, and it's not a bad thing. Like, oh, bad you are, that's coming in and out, and it kind of put all dots over I's to tell that the length of the liturgy is the liturgy speaks to us in so many different things, right? During the service, first it's the Bible, the gospel. So first of all, the reading from the Old Testament, the antiphons, Bible, then the sermon, and then there is, after that, there is a communion and the rest of it. And it's, again, it's very interesting that everybody gets from the service something for their own at that point of time. So I was listening to a couple of weeks ago. We had a Vespers in our church, and somebody came in for the Vespers, and in the Vespers there's that short petition that says, for the living, let us complete our evening prayer to the Lord. And then it keeps going on and going. And there's a petition for all the Christians, And the person started to cry. And I said to her, she was not from Ukraine or Ukrainian tradition. She was from a different tradition. And she said, in Syria, that was the last petition that I heard when they started to bomb the church, and it was the last thing that I heard, and then we had to run away because the shells, they started shelling, and one of the shells went to the church, So again, to everybody, church speak in their own way, kind of thing, So that's why it's so beautiful. So I have to ask you another little question, and if those who are watching can also ask questions to our young presenters here. So what is the church for you now, guys? Again, I have this little script, like I have this 6 or 7 questions I'd like to go through. How would you answer that? What's the church for you now?
Well, I would probably say the same things. That's the place where I meet people from my culture, and the place where I could find some peace for me.
Okay. All right. And I'll go to Ruslan
Go to Ruslan next. I don't know if too much has changed. For myself, at least, it's to me, it's the faith I was raised in, the traditions I was raised in, and even after exploring other faiths and traditions and seeing them, it's still the right one. So I very much enjoy it and feel at home, and never feels the mass never feels too long, which is interesting because I know other people, our Catholic friends, like to have their 30-minute mass and go home, but I think our liturgies are very nice, and I think the time of itself isn't really an issue. I never really had too much of an issue. I mean, in the summer it may get hot, but other than that, it's not a bad time. I do miss going. I know Lukasz liked to go often when he was, able to. When I was still at university and far away, he was still able to go and represent our family, which is nice. And I wish there was more access to it where I went to school. We only had mass maybe once a month if we were lucky, because there's just no regular service. So I think we're very fortunate to have regular mass, liturgies in Ottawa. I don't think too much has changed. I never went through an agnostic phase. I was never an atheist. I was never, I was always very much at home and welcome, and I was reading other religions. I was visiting other churches, and this one feels right.
Okay. And Katrina, what about you?
Church, for me, I guess in this present moment, even though it's been like a long time, is my way of life. I mean, I look at the 10 Commandments and I try to apply them in my daily life of, just being a good person and lending my hand out and helping people when they need to be helped. And like when I look back, me and my sister were actually talking about it today because she said you did call her. And we were chatting about it. And she's like, I feel like going to church made me the person I am today. It made me a good person because she's like, I was always surrounded by love. I was always surrounded by helping hands, by kindness. We were never shown any negative aspect growing up, and maybe that's why we feel like it's so much like home and that we feel safe when we go to church. And so what is church for me now? Church is that home. It's my family. It's somewhere I know that if all else like falls apart, like I know I can call any person from church and know that they're going to have a hand open for me, a nice warm meal, a nice like bed to sleep in. Like the people there, they're just people that you can rely on. And I'd like to believe that who I am now is because of that, of growing up with that kind of mentality, that mindset, that religion, that like shaped me who I am today. And, you know, I'm pretty cool. So it's a good thing. But so that's what church is for me in this present moment. Like, it's unfortunate, like I do live far away, and when we have to go to church, it's a long journey, and we don't mind doing the journey. But with COVID, it's been, you know, it's tough. We haven't been in, I'd say, almost 2 years, and I miss it. I miss my family, and I look forward to when we get back to a new normal and I can see all your faces, not on screens, but actually in person, and celebrate that coming together again and rediscovering what church can mean to me then.
Probably the most difficult time. Thank you, guys. It's very heartwarming for me what you're saying. During the Paschal times, we had a number of people that, you know, we came up with an idea of drive-through basket blessings, right? Because to bless the baskets this year, because last year we didn't, right? Like, I mean, last year was totally isolated. People were panicking and stuff like that. You know, this year we had that drive-through basket blessing, and the basket blessing is a pretense, right? Pretense for that. The most important was not the blessing. The most important was that the presence, right? Exchange, conversations, you know, and feeling part of the community. And I think at that point of time, I really kind of felt that presence of community and the importance of the presence of community in us. And that's why for me, it's been a how would you say, a nice 19 years journey here in this parish. I would ask you a couple more questions. No, actually, it's not a question. It's not a quiz. You know, fail, pass, fail, yes, no, check mark. I just kind of enjoys listening to you. I do believe that soon that COVID will lift up and we'll be able to kind of get together again. And for the future, it will be kind of interesting to know your ideas for what would you see, what would you like to see in the church happening in the future. And anybody can
Ping pong
start.
tournament. You can open up the basement to everybody. We can have more
ping pong
celebrations. I think more social events would be nice to have. Just casual events. Doesn't even have to be on Sunday. It can be whenever. I really miss the potlucks I used to go to at the church. I miss meeting new people. Yeah. That was a lot of fun. We had built some good relationships with the people you met there, and being able to grow that is nice.
Yeah, and probably some more events for like people for our age group, like for people from like 15 and 30s, not necessarily like related to church. You know what I mean? Like not necessarily like Bible studies, but more like picnics or something like that. Because I know that there are a lot of people out there who have not decided yet if they believe in God, like if they're agnostic like me, or and I think that they could also come if the events would not be really, like that much related to church. And then they could, like, we could meet them, and they would probably, some of them would want to try come into the church. So I guess it would be nice.
Mm-hmm.
I'd agree with Paulina. A lot of the larger Protestant churches in the States tend to invite and bring as many guests as possible. They try to spread the word of God through that way. Seems to work for them. I mean, it's very different than how we tend to operate. But I think it's good to get the word out. I mean, I was received a call a month ago on our home phone from a Jehovah's Witness, and he was trying to propagate to ourselves, and I said, no, thank you. We're Greek Orthodox, but thank you for thinking of us. And he told me to enjoy my day. He said, have a nice day. You're the first person who didn't yell at me and say, oh, I'm an atheist, stop bothering me, and so forth. And for a man who I presume had been yelled at a lot that day, it was very nice for him to hear some kind words. And I think we should focus on bringing in more people who may not understand Orthodoxy and sort of the Word of God, but also including them through our cultural traditions. I mean, there are many people I know who are interested in learning about Orthodoxy, but as there is no, I guess, native Orthodoxy to Canada, they borrow a lot from Syria or Ukraine or Russia or Serbia, and being able to show them how it's not just a cultural tradition, and there's both components, and we do have cultural traditions that resonate with how we do our praying, but it's sometimes a little different, so we can show people around.
Mhm.
Sorry,
I'm gonna be old-fashioned. I really so much am looking forward to doing Pisinki as a workshop again, and um, just being able to do that art. I really miss the whole Easter. Like, I am so looking forward to Easter in the future, and I hope that like it'll be just as wonderful, if not more wonderful, when we all come back together. But like, I remember the last Pisinkia workshop we did. I was the one who hosted it, and just I think we had 30 people. And like you said, because it's not technically a religious thing, some people just really enjoy art. I invited 5 friends or something, and they came and they learned how to do it, and they thought it was something so beautiful, and that they wanted to come back. And I just remember like me extending that part and passion that I have, like the artistic side, of course, of like my church community, just felt so wonderful to me, and like sharing that with people who may not have the same beliefs as me. So I'm really looking forward to Pisinki workshop in the future, which I know is very specific, but this year I really missed it, and I was upset that I did not have a Kiska to do some Pisinka, because I would have done it. But
you know who you should have contacted, right?
I know.
You know who you should have contacted.
Yeah.
I'm listening to you. Is that, and it's interesting that what you're saying about this, because it truly is amazing. Like, your words are just you have no idea how much they resonate in my heart. I wanted to talk to you about, wanted to kind of share with you a couple of things. A couple of years ago, um, I had a really nice conversation with Father Galadza. For those of you who know who he is, he's a professor at St. Paul's University, and he's Ukrainian Catholic priest, and he had said something very interesting. He says, because we were talking about how I was telling him that we tend to do uh, more of social activities and stuff like that, and I said sometimes we forget about the church. And he goes to me, it was about 12, 14 years ago, he says to me, like, he says, what are you talking about? That's the church. Where 2 and 3 gathered in my name, I am there, Christ said. So it's very interesting. And you're right. Like those social activities, social gatherings, socializing, it's an outlet, a safe outlet for people to get to connect, right? Because it's under the church auspices. Like people, like there's no there's nothing dangerous there. People connect in there. It's safe. You can feel free. There's like perhaps smaller group, maybe 10, 15, 20 people, and stuff like that. And that's where it builds up. Not as I'm not how to say, I'm not the purpose of this conversation is not to proselytize people. Because I'm sorry to say it, Ruslan, because I'm not a Jehovah's Witness. I'm not gonna call people and knock on the door saying, "Hey, come on in," because the kingdom of God will happen. Not that I am judging them. You know what I mean? It's that brings me to the second point. And the second point is that there's a really well-known Russian Orthodox priest, and his name is Father Georgy Chistякov. And Polina's internet booted her. Oh, no, not Polina's. Ruslan's internet booted him out. And it's interesting that he had an article says, where does that hatred comes from? And part of the subtitles of that article was was, "We are Orthodox, comma, why?" And the question mark. And that was for me, like, I think I said it, that passage a couple of times. I mentioned to lots of people about this. He said, it's we cannot go around like right now. And he talked about contemporary Russia in the beginning of 21st century. He says, right now we are identify ourselves as Orthodox because we're not like them. This point, no, I'm not like you or you or you. I'm better. Like, here it is. Here, look at this. I'm Orthodox. Versus, questions of humility, kindness, patience. Non-judgmental. It's extremely important not to be judged, right? You walk into the church, and Metropolitan Antoni from United States said it once, a really nice words. He says that when somebody walks into the church, you might be the only gospel they see. Well, gospel, evangelion is a good news, right? So when you come into the church, you might be when somebody comes into the church, you might be the only gospel that they see, right? And because you might be the only gospel that they see, how you portray that good news, totally impacts the person, right? And that's why it's important, to have that safety net in the church, and it doesn't have to be, all of those, like, I really missed Our Lady's making Vareniki. Not because they're tasty, that's self-evident, Not that I do not like to eat them, I do. That's also self-evident. But the whole point of it is that, all of these gatherings, and they sit there, they chat together, so you come in, you talk to somebody, ask them how they are, how's their family. And in that non-stage time, perhaps you would have one of the best, most touching, heartwarming conversation at that point in time versus, like on church and Sunday, when everybody's rushed and stuff like that. So I think that's one of my own kind of my own favorites, like when people make it humanity. Which, by the way, I'm getting in about 30 minutes, in about half an hour or 40 minutes maybe. I'm getting about $1,500 worth of Vareniki into the church. So if somebody would like to buy it, please do so. So that's amazing. That was a fantastic. That was a fantastic thing that you have said, and we, as our conversation kind of goes to the second half, or even a little bit further than that, I just, like I said, I wanted to talk with you about things that we can do, things that young people would like to do, right? What would you like to see being done? Like, what comes to your mind?
In terms of events, or in terms of liturgy, or?
No, anything for that matter. In terms of the church, in terms of events, I know that Ruslan, you and I had talked a lot about it. But Ruslan, by the way, has an unsurmountable amount of really good seeds for tomatoes, for cucumbers,
Seed exchange.
for kale.
Everybody can trade heirloom seeds and call it a nice garden. I think that'd be cool.
If someone could take half my garden, that'd be great.
There you go.
Right. Well, I had planted some tomatoes myself, this year. Mariana planted couple seeds of. We still have some seeds in the cups, So if they sprout, or if they spring up, let me know, and you will be more than welcome to take some of them. So, anyways, I heard about the aspect of the church that you had mentioned, but also what would you like to see from different standpoint or perspectives, in the church happening?
Something.
Not only for bringing people into the church, the bodies, but also building a community, building non-possessive community. We'll get donations and stuff like that, but just generally bringing a good spirit, making people feel good about themselves. What do you think that we need we can do more of that, more of.
I think we could definitely work with our sister churches. I mean, there's however many Orthodox churches in Ottawa, and you never seem to meet anybody who attends the other ones. You seldom
Mhm.
meet the Ukrainians who go to the Catholic Church. Certainly working with as many other churches as possible, and doing events. I mean, I know for a fact that being in the Orthodox faith, you get to meet other people of the same tradition, and it's not as common in Canada, but it's very interesting when you get to meet friends from different cultures who have similar traditions to yourself. I made a Greek friend at my Catholic university who's a Coptic Christian, which may not be the same type of Orthodox, but it's very nice to see somebody who has a shared sort of way of professing her faith, but may not be the same race as me. She's not Ukrainian. She's Egyptian, and then I made a Greek friend who was Greek Orthodox, just like we are, and it was really cool to meet other people. But I wondered, why did we never, have liturgy together, or why are we not as working together as a greater community? I think that would be cool, because it is cross-cultural in various ways.
Absolutely. What's your take on that, Paulina or Katrina?
Well, I think the more events, the better. So anything that's we could do, like any social events, even, I don't know, do camping together, if that would be possible. I'm not sure if it would be, but why not? Like,
Yeah.
like that. Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
That's right. Why not?
Pets, like I remember when we were younger, we would go bowling, or I know we went to like hike at Pink's Lake. So I am excited the idea that like you want to plan like a social trip to come out here to like do some, either visit the chutes, like the waterfall, visit the canyon, or even some of you might like want to zip line, something that's not necessarily directly related to church, but like it kind of, the activity allows you to have a laugh with someone that you might have been too shy to introduce yourself to, but now that you have something to talk about, it's a good like gateway in. And like I love the idea that Rue said about having like not just Ukrainian Orthodox, but maybe other different Orthodox churches come together, and instead of like focus on the differences, like where we focus on what is similar and how can we like, and like that similarity is what will build like a greater bond in like Ottawa and the region surrounding, where like our community and our family can just grow, and like it just makes your heart get bigger and bigger. Other social events, I mean, we could do, I know we used to do game nights. I'm not really sure what happened to those, but we had like ball hockey and like a bunch of board games, like, and we had like a movie on at one point, just like snacks, and like each parent would bring like a snack, or each adult, like I was only 16 at the time, so my mom still had to drive me places, but so we each would like bring like snacks and like potlucks. I mean, like I would love, like Paulina mentioned earlier, a picnic, like all of us just bring something, let's picnic and walk to the canal, and walk along the water. And that's the thing, like it's just to take the charge of it. And I know Ruslan started the youth group for the older youth, that I think is a great incentive. And once COVID like does lift and we get back to some new normal, I can really see that becoming something great, Rue. Like I can see how much like even the Catholic Ukrainians, they want to connect with other Ukrainians regardless of religion, because it's not just the religion that makes us who we are, it's also like that shared culture and that shared understanding of our roots. And yeah.
Very inspirational. You remind me, like, I mean, I guess it's the stamp of the age, because I've been in this parish for 19 years. So you remind me, yeah, we did have that. Yeah, we did have that. And do you remember that? And,
Yeah.
and I remember us having at the church picnics, we had this like the games and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And remember, we also had one year, we also had that some walks. One time we went there around, not large group. It was like 5 or 6 cars only. We went around the Pink Lake together, everybody.
Yeah.
So, and it was really nice. It was a picnic. We walked, and it was tough, because we are used to sitting in our chairs, and but it was tough. But at the same time, it was very nice and bonding. We still have those pictures, and we also last 3 years we haven't done it, but last 2 years, understandably why. But we also used to go, like, when you talk about something really beneficial. Not only, like, I mean, the social aspect, absolutely, it needs to be improved, engaged, and it's very important that that it's not only priest driven or somebody from the executive driven, who are in, with all due respect, who are in their 70s, and they're trying to tell youth what to do. No, it has to be youth driven. Sorry to say that. It has to be youth driven. Like, there's an initiative, there's funds available, there's lots of things, there's resources available, but it has to be at least initialized as something relevant to the youth, right? Like, I'm sorry, what I really thought was cool, it was Tetris a couple of years ago. That was like 20, 25 years ago, and I couldn't stop playing Tetris for a year. Like, it was just such a cool thing. But right now, you talk about Tetris, kids and people like, what? Really, people still play that? Or what do you call that?
Pac-Man.
That thing that was going on the
Pac-Man.
screen and eating things. Sorry. Pac-Man, that's it. Pac-Man. Now in my school where I teach math, in my math class, a couple of kids made the Pac-Man as a game, as a part of one of their assignments, and I'm thinking, like, man, I thought it was like an invention of the century, the Pac-Man that you come and play, or Star Wars, shooting games that you have with a joystick that you play there and stuff like that. So now all of this is on a computer and stuff. So what I'm trying to say is that it has to be relevant to you in order to facilitate your interest. So the social events, social gatherings, it's really good activities, and it does not require any funds. We can go together to, let's say, to Gatineau Park or around the canal, or I just wanted to tag along with you, because then if I tag along with 20 and 30-year-olds, I feel that I'm 20 and 32 because I am combined of those two now. So, but it's really interesting, and to tell you honestly, I learned from hanging out with you as much as I learned hanging out with somebody older, because it's still a different perspective, like different points of understanding. That's one thing that I had gathered from our conversation. Number two is the cultural activities, and Katrina, it's very interesting that you mentioned this, because truly, if we set it up properly, right, we can have workshops for like throughout the entire spring for making business,
Yeah.
right? And it would be an employment opportunity to our younger people, right? Sorry, you pay $35 an hour to somebody youngster, and it's great, and it's benefit to the church making some money. We don't really charge that much, right? We can almost charge on a break-even basis. It's benefit to the church. It's benefit to people who participate or get engaged into it. It's enrichment, and all around it benefits everybody. And it not necessarily like pushes our faith, like shoves down our faith down the throat. So you have to do this because you came to our church. No, please, welcome, come on in. And if people choose to take another step, that's totally up to them. So that those cultural activities that again lead to leadership roles, and leadership skills, the skills of organizing workshops, they're not only for Piesanki, they're for life, right? So you learn something, you become a leader, you take charge of something, and then all of a sudden you put on resumes things like, I have organizational skills. I have organized. I have brought this. You know what I mean? So like, it's even from practical gaining knowledge standpoint. From the standpoint of faith, very, very good points that you had mentioned. And we have talked about this, remember, but we haven't really done much of that.
Yeah.
But exchanges with other churches would be nice. The reason why I was talking about this September 11th tentative date to have a trip to your what's the name of that spot? Sorry, Fort Cologne, right?
Yes.
That's where it works. Going there like for a day with younger people or with families for that matter. It's an opportunity to hang out. It's an opportunity to experience something with your own age bracket people. Not.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about you guys. So again, like, and in the same time, to have a larger group coming in. I do not know if you have a zip lining that is strong enough to withhold me from one end of the canyon to the other, but I would like to try that as well.
I'm sure we
I'd
do.
like
I'm
to
sure we
try
can
that as
find
well.
something.
One very interesting thing that I wanted to mention is, of course, that we have done also trips to the monastery. Right? Remember that monastery in Quebec, in Buckingham, the Greek Orthodox women's monastery. It's very interesting, to talk to them, to discover this, that how they host us, they give supper in exchange for a donation. It's very interesting that they teach there. They never ask for money, right? But they just put a plate there. If you can offer something, please do so. And it's very moving and inspiring and probably educational at the same time. And something else I wanted to say. And the last thing, but not the least, is that a charitable aspect. We talked about faith aspect, we faith building aspect. We talked social, professional skills, leadership roles, and stuff. And the last thing, but not the least, would be worth mentioning the fact that we need also to be good stewards in the community. So what I mean by that, we can have an event to help out somebody, either an orphan in Ukraine or somebody who is underprivileged here in Ottawa, or food bank or something like that. So to truly show that we care not only for ourselves or being insular, but we also are caring for brothers. And remember, Cain and Abel, they had this wonderful phrase. Well, there's from Book of Genesis when Cain killed Abel, and Adam is coming and asking them, so where's your brother, and he's asking the question to his father, am I my brother's keeper, right? And the interesting paraphrasing of that is, we are our brother's keepers. In the church, we are our brother's keepers. So it's not only related to us, like, us four or us as a community, but just generally, So, and looking at the atrocities that are happening in life right now, I think that it's very important and pivotal to be that brother's keepers, to be the voice of the reason in the community. So that's my kind of comment, I have to say this, and I probably would spoil that entire thing, but I had a good friend of mine is a rabbi. He moved to Israel, but we had spent lots of time going for coffee together, and so I said it to him once. Arnie, I said, I kind of feel awkward to be a matchmaker, So, and he says to me, why? It's a perfectly good role for the priest. So I think, again, one of the aspects of us meeting together, of course, is the aspects of the possibility of meeting somebody else who, I'm not saying long-lasting relationship, but I'm saying something that is, becoming friends, right? And a good social network as well. Anything that you guys would like to say, please let me know. Anything you would like to add?
Nothing too much. I mean, we've had a pretty interesting discussion. I think we should do more of them for sure. Some good ideas. I know. I learned a bit from everybody's experiences tonight. You got my mind thinking, so I like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was so nice to meet all of you, and it was a very interesting discussion. So yeah, we definitely should do them more.
I love the sense of
And I think the next
community
time we'll
and
meet,
oops, sorry. um, my little final point is I feel blessed to have been part of this with you all, and thank you, Atats, for reaching out to me to chat with both Paulina and Ruslan, who I know both pretty well, and yet it's been a long time since we've reconnected, and just hearing about your lives and where your thoughts are at, and the idea that we all want to do something more social. Like, I'm very much looking forward to seeing you guys in the future and seeing all the other friends and new friends that we can have. And it's really warmed my heart and touched my heart, and I feel really blessed to have been part of this tonight. So thank you very much.
next time we'll do Zoom so more people can participate in the conversation. Right now, I can only have 4 people on the screen, so just thank you very much, guys. Дякую вам. I have to go to the church to receive vareniki that I just got from Toronto. so that's part of my life. Anyways, there's a movie called As Good as It Gets, right? Where Helen Hunt and Jeff Nicholson playing there, right? And there's this moment in the movie that says, Jeff Nicholson playing this social outcast, genius writer, but social outcast, doesn't know how to say, always says the awkward things, and so on. And what happens is that she sits there with him in a restaurant, because he hired her to be his driver, nothing else, just his driver, because he has feeling to her, but he cannot express it to her because of his awkwardness. And so they're driving there. They sit in a restaurant, and he's always social awkward. He says something really wrong all the time, And so Helen Hunt says to him, at this point of time, tell me something as a compliment, So he starts with fashion. He says, well, when I met you, before I met you, I had to take pills in the morning, during lunchtime, 3 pills, during the supper time, 3 pills, Now that I'm with you, I'm taking 2 pills and 2 pills and 2 pills. And she looks at him and she says, I don't see how it is a compliment. And then he says to her, you make me want to be a better man. It's like a very famous phrase. So what I wanted to say is just to thank you guys, because you make me want to be a better priest. That's all. Дякую. All right. Тоді давайте скажемо молитву і будемо прощатися. Добре? Ім'я Отця і Сина Святого Духа. Амінь. Ім'я Отця і Сина Святого Духа. Амінь. Ім'я Отця і Сина Святого Духа. Амінь. Христос воскрес із мертвих, смертю смерть подолав, і тим, що в гробах життя дарував. Христос воскрес із мертвих, смертю смерть подолав, і тим, що в гробах життя дарував. Христос воскрес із мертвих, смертю смерть подолав, і тим, що в гробах життя дарував. Христос воскрес.
Воістину воскрес.
You see, there is a delay there between us and Quebec. Okay, guys, it was a pleasure seeing you. Yes, and we'll